The It movies have gotten a spin-off series. That makes this the first It TV show since the miniseries back in 1990. Now this show is from Andy Muschietti, and he did It Chapter 1, but he also did It Chapter 2 and The Flash, two projects that didn't really jive with audiences. Even though I liked them more than others, I can definitely see the flaws in them. So, how did he do with this series? Well, let's find out. Now right off the bat, I think the production value of this show is fantastic. It doesn't look like a TV show, it looks like a movie. And that's exactly how I felt about the Penguin show as well, so HBO Max is doing a really fantastic job with the production quality of its shows. And then we get the big opening scene, and this was really cool. It introduces an innocent new kid named Matty who has no money and is trying to watch a movie in theaters. He just barely manages to escape security and then gets picked up by what seems to be a kind family.
We usually don't pick up hitchhikers.
At first the vibe is friendly, but then the tone slowly changes and it becomes horrifying. We get some really creepy imagery, Pennywise turns into the winged baby from the Chinese restaurant in It Chapter 2, and then Matty gets killed. And this was a really cool scene. It didn't scare me as much as it did other people, but I thought this scene was very well done. But I gotta ask, since when could Pennywise do hallucinations that were this sophisticated? Usually he can pretty a place up, but they still have to enter a house. So did this kid really enter a car? Or did Pennywise create the car and Matty never entered a real car to begin with? I also liked our new group of kid characters. They're goofy, charming, and funny. Also perverted.
Miss Johansson is about to take her bra off. Her boobs are gonna be out.
I'm sensing some Richie energy here.
She hot?
No, Richie. She's not hot.
And that's an interesting point. I did see similarities between some of these kids and the kids in the other It films. Phil was a fast-talking, anxious kid, which reminded me of Eddie. Matty actually looked like Eddie from the It miniseries. I don't know if that was deliberate or a complete coincidence. And Lily is kinda sorta the Beverly of the group. At least on first impressions. And they're all feeling guilt about Matty's death because they all blew him off. Lily on New Year's and Teddy and Phil on his birthday. And if they didn't, he wouldn't have been alone and would still be alive. And I like the little scene in the cinema where the kids don't know who's crying about Matty, and then when the lights come on, you find out that they're all crying for him. That was both funny and sad. Now, I was surprised to see the military in here, mainly because when these It movies focus on children, you usually don't get any development with the adults, and they don't do much in this episode, so maybe we'll get more from them in upcoming episodes, but we got a little racial subplot with them, and so far, it was fine, but it's clearly a lot of setup for stuff that's going to come later. The episode also makes multiple visual references to a turtle. Now, I won't say anything about that turtle because they might actually delve into it in this show, but if you were ever interested in the origin of Pennywise, then the turtle is very important. And seeing as this show is also supposed to be an origin, I have no doubt that they are going to delve into that, especially considering that this is a TV show. They have the time. I actually thought they had the time for this in It Chapter 2, especially given how long that movie was, but unfortunately it never happened. And the big thing that got everyone talking, that ending.
Everybody dies.
Dude.
Not everybody. No. Is that?
No. Hey, whatever.
Yeah, not everybody. Lily and Ronnie are the only two survivors, and I actually thought that Ronnie was going to die first, because she was all alone in that projection room. But yeah, this was a huge shock and a really good twist. There are two problems I have with this episode though. The first is that they spend such a long time with the build-up of these horror sequences and do such a good job with it that the payoff seemed so lackluster. Matty's death didn't leave an impression on me like the scene with Georgie in the first movie, and when it was over, both me and my brother were like, oh, was that it? That wasn't too bad. I also felt the same way about the ending. I think it was very ballsy to kill off these kid characters at the end of the first episode, and I love how they strung you along with that. But when the death started to happen, I couldn't even tell who was being killed. In fact, when we saw Teddy get slammed against the projector room, I thought it looked like Matty, and I didn't even know that they had all died until Lily said so. So the way these deaths were shot was too quick and unclear, and me and my brother were watching this on a 4K projector, and we both came away thinking they could have filmed it better. Also, the little actress playing Susie, her acting was good in this episode, except for this one scene. It was just a dry line read with no acting. All the other kids, including her brother, are being killed around her, so I'm surprised they didn't do another take and tell her to act scared. And this little girl is Phil's real-life sister, by the way. How sweet. They both star together and die together. Adorable. But overall, I really liked this episode. It was a great start to what looks like an intriguing series. So the first episode gets a 7 out of 10. And then we get episode 2, and this guy reminded me of a Jamaican Jacob from Twilight. Now this episode focuses much more on the adults, and we'll talk about them in a bit, because the most interesting character of this episode was Lily. The reason being because now we are seeing the trauma that she is experiencing after the events of the last episode, which is an interesting turn because I thought she was fine in the first episode, but now I think she is the most interesting and sympathetic character. And hello, looks like we found some kids that will gladly watch Pennywise eat. So far we have seen innocent kids die, so this show better make the shitty characters get it bad at some point too. Otherwise, I'll be very disappointed. And this entire episode, Marge wants to impress the mean girls of her school, and she's trying to get Lily to brush off what she's going through so she can join their bitchy little circle. And Lily, rightfully so, doesn't give a damn about any of this. And although it doesn't reflect well on Marge, this is all understandable and relatable stuff from a kid's perspective. Doesn't make it excusable, but it shows the more selfish, and even to an extent, shittier side of some of these kids. We also get introduced to a couple of new kid characters, most notably Leroy's son, Will. And we get several group of adult characters that this episode focuses on too, including Leroy's family. And I looked these characters up because something about them sounded familiar. And then I discovered that these are Mike's relatives. Leroy is his grandfather and Will here is his father. So that's actually pretty cool to fold those characters into this origin series. Now that makes for a lot of side characters, and pretty much all of these character groups have some sort of racism commentary attached to them. And I thought it was really well done. But that being said, I think they're focusing on the racism theme a bit too much. The reason I say that is because it does kind of bum you out after a while. The racism element is so heavily weighing on the tone of this series, and we are just in episode 2 at this point. So I hope they balance it out a little bit, because dude, even the teacher is a racist bitch. We also find that the Colonel staged that attack on Leroy to test him, because it turns out that the military are looking to capture Pennywise and use him as, what else? A weapon. And they want Leroy to help them. Yeah, we all know that's not going to work out, and I'm looking forward to seeing it blow up in their faces. I mean, it's quite sick how the military know this thing is out there and can use people's fears against them, and rather than warn the town or try to kill it, they just stay silent and try to weaponize it. They claim it's for the good of the world, but really it's for the good of their own selfish selves. Honestly, I would have turned the Colonel in.
You're obligated to report me. But before you do, I would ask you take 10 minutes to hear me out.
Very well, Warwick. We shall hear you out, then throw you out.
We also find out who this guy is. Turns out, his name is Dick Halloran.
Who?
He is the guy from The Shining, so they are giving us a little bit of his origin story as well. So I wonder if they use his ability to help find Pennywise. If they do, that's some cool world building right there. And I like how this episode also comments on the stereotypical Stephen King bullies and how the whole town just sees it as normal, which at that point, if these people's reactions to seeing a kid get kicked by a gang of bullies is boys will be boys, then maybe Maine deserves to get destroyed by a Carrie in the end. Because this series is showing us that Maine is just racist, corrupt, and give death stares to someone who tries to put a stop towards bullying. I find it hard to really care for this town, other than the innocent children and the black people. Never thought I would phrase it like that, but here we go, that's the world this show is presenting us. But then again, Leroy was really being awful to his wife as well. Now we do get some more Pennywise in this episode as well. The horror sequence on the bed was actually the freakiest thing I've seen in a while. This is by far the best horror sequence of the show so far, and I don't know how they can top this. And I watched this episode and the first on the Vision Master Pro 2 projector that I reviewed recently, and it was much more horrifying to watch on the big screen. And the horror scene with the shopping aisles was done very creatively, and I like how they used the aisles to give a feeling of claustrophobia, and that was really clever. I gotta say, the horror in this show has been really enjoyable so far. The episode ends with the sheriff forcing Lily to frame her friend's father for being at the theater when her friends died, or else she is going back to the nut house. So she does, and quite tragically, he gets arrested. And Lily ends up in the nut house again anyway. That was sad and messed up, and shows just how much of a shithole Maine is. Look at these guys. You can't help but wish Deadpool and Cable would clean this place up. And the military find a car that I can only assume Matty was in. And I think this episode has broken me. Honestly, if I were any of these characters, I would just leave this racist piece of shit town and live someplace else. Because I don't ever recall Maine being this much of a shitty place before. I mean, Pennywise is almost the second scariest thing here. So yeah, I enjoyed episode 2, and when it ended, I felt that I got a lot of episode for my week's worth of patience. I mean, this episode was an hour long, and I had a really great time. So episode 2 gets a low 8 out of 10. And we still haven't seen Pennywise yet. They show his eyes at one point, but that's it. So I wonder if Pennywise has even gotten his clown persona yet, or if they are just holding off of showing him for dramatic reasons. Only time will tell. So, what did you think of the 2 It Welcome to Derry episodes? Is it a good start, or are you just not feeling it? Be sure to follow me on Patreon for exclusive content and access to my private Discord server, and click any of the videos on your screen now if you want to see me cover any more Stephen King adaptations. And I will see all of you very soon. Take care.